Good morning once again, my brothers and sisters in Christ. What a great privilege we have to study His Word one more day. And today, we find ourselves just looking at this passage in Genesis 20, saying, not again. Come on, not again. You remember back in Genesis chapter 12, when we were introduced to Abram, there was a famine. He went to Egypt. He ended up telling the leadership of Egypt that Sarah was his sister. There was all kinds of trouble. He got confronted in his lie. Well, kind of a half lie. Well, you think, you go through that experience. You have all these moments with God where He reveals what He's going to do through your life. You think, well, maybe I'll learn. Well, turns out Abraham's a lot like most of us. Takes more than once to learn. Let's look at it. So we get to Genesis chapter 20. Excuse me. Now Abraham moved on from there into the region of the Negev and lived between Kadesh and Shur. For a while, he stayed in Gerar. Now, we're going to look at a map in a minute to help you familiarize yourself with what that means in terms of his location. The Negev is a desert region to the south and west of the Dead Sea, would be the way to say it, I guess. And there Abraham said of his wife Sarah, "She is my sister." Okay, so they go to this place, and, the general question is, well, who are you? Well, I'm Abraham. Where'd you come from? Well, I was up in Hebron by the trees of Mamre. Oh, now I'm in your land. Well, Abraham is still worried that he is going to be killed because if the leadership of this region, the guy's name is Abimelech, if he wants Sarah, they're going to kill Abraham to take her. That's his fear. So Abraham's doing this preemptive thing again. Hey, Sarah, let's tell whoever asks that you're my sister. And once that lie goes out again, or I should say half-truth, then Abimelech, the king of Gerar, sent for Sarah and took her. It was not uncommon at all for the kings of the day to increase their harem. And so that's what Abimelech is doing. All right, so let's look at the map quickly. It says he's of Gerar. Where is that? Well, first, here's the Negev region. You see Kadesh Barnea. You see Shur on the left. So Abraham's out there in the desert. Here's where Gerar is. That's where Abimelech lives. That's where the king is. But in the end, Abraham has moved out of the Haran area for now. Okay? The text moves us forward, but God came to Abimelech in a dream one night and said, you just hate to have God say something like this to you. You are as good as dead. Wow. So here this pagan king is confronted by God himself in a dream. You know what? You're going to die because of the woman you have taken. She is a married woman. Okay, Abimelech, you didn't have all the facts and you were misled. Yes, she might be his half-sister, but she's also his wife. And you know what? If we don't rectify this situation, I am going to wipe you out. Again, just look at how Abimelech is wondering what's going on. And the text is clear to tell us that nothing's happened between Abimelech and Sarah. Now, Abimelech had not gone near her. So we know that her integrity is intact. And so he said, Lord, will you destroy an innocent nation? Now, this is a beautiful question. Abimelech is saying, look, God, I know who you are in the sense that I respect your power and authority. I don't know if this pagan king had a conversion experience in this moment, but he asked the Lord a tremendous question. Will you wipe me out? Am I as good as dead, even though I had no intention of doing something wrong? Well, here's the answer. Did he not say to me, she is my sister? In other words, I was misled, Lord. And didn't she also say, he is my brother? Hey, this was complicit. They both said the same things. I have done this with a clear conscience and clean hands. In other words, Lord, don't hold me guilty for believing the lie that I was told. I had no other way to understand. All right. Then God said to him in the dream. So here we go. Some more information for Abimelech. Yes, I know you did this with a clear conscience. That's great. God understands. And so I have kept you from sinning against me. Had you slept with her, you would have experienced my full vengeance, but I stopped you. I didn't let you go that far. That is why I did not let you touch her. All right, so what do we see here? Well, Abraham and Sarah are complicit in misleading, if not outright lying, to Abimelech, the king who lives in Gerar. All right, God knows about that, but God is still intensely defending his plan. Okay, Abraham, we've sat down on a few occasions now. We've talked about the fact that you're going to have descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky. You're going to have all this land as an inheritance through your descendants. All nations are going to be blessed through you. You're going to have a son of promise, not Ishmael, the son you created by your own ingenuity. No, not the son through Hagar, but the son through Sarah. You're going to have a son of promise. God has told him all these things repeatedly with power, even making a covenant, if you recall. Well, Abraham still hasn't got to the place where he believes that all this is really going to happen, in the sense that he knows that God has him protected. Abraham in this scenario could have easily said, God, I'm not afraid of a king of Gerar. You can handle it. I've seen you destroy sinners just in the recent history of the passages we've gone through. You wiped out Sodom and Gomorrah for their sin. No king on earth is going to hurt me, God. I belong to you. This could have been Abraham's opinion, his perspective, but no, he said, I need to protect myself. Let me come up with a half-truth. Let me get Sarah involved so she supports my half-truth. Let us deceive this king and let us then, survive. Well, God intervenes. Hey, king, had you touched her, I was going to wipe you out, but I kept you from touching her, and I'm warning you. Now return the man's wife. And now look at this. What does God call him? God says he's a prophet. And what's he going to do for you? I'm going to send the prophet, the misguided prophet who misled you. I'm going to send him to do what? To pray for you. I'm going to send the prophet to pray for the king. And you will live. All right? He's going to pray, and I'm going to withhold my judgment when he does. But if you don't return her, you may be sure that you and all yours will die. If you don't rectify this, Abimelech, your whole nation is going to suffer great loss. The threat of judgment that Abimelech naively walked into, nonetheless, God's purpose has first priority. God has chosen to use Abraham despite any faults he might have. He still has faith, at least faith enough to be declared righteous. Right? We'll see his faith really expand in the coming stories in the book of Genesis. But here we are. God's going to defend the purpose that he has planned for Abraham and Sarah. And here he is, defending it. Early the next morning, Abimelech summoned all his officials, and when he told them all that had happened, they were very much afraid. How did we get into God's bullseye of judgment? What did we do? We believed Abraham, we believed Sarah, but God has an opinion that counts more than anything else, and we need to do what he told us to do. So we see in Genesis 29, then Abimelech called Abraham in and said, "What have you done to us? How have I wronged you that you have brought such great guilt upon me and my kingdom? You have done things to me that should not be done." I mean, here we go again. Abraham is being directly confronted about his half-truth and his trying to mislead the king. And the king is now on to it. Why? Not because Abraham confessed, but because God confronted. And now Abimelech knows things have got to change. He confronts Abraham here in verse 9, and then he says, "What was your reason for doing this? Why did you put me in the bullseye of God's judgment, Abraham?" And Abraham replied, "I said to myself, there is surely no fear of God in this place. All right, you guys don't follow the God I follow, and they will kill me because of my wife. All right, I assume, King, that you would want my wife. I assumed you would come for her, and if you knew I was her husband, I was afraid. I was afraid you were going to kill me." Again, a half-truth, a desire to protect myself without trusting God for protection. Here Abraham goes again. He's trying to save himself again. Well, what happens? Besides, she really is my sister. Abraham justifies himself to the king. "The daughter of my father, though not of my mother, and she became my wife." So, okay, I didn't lie to you completely. I misled you. I didn't tell you she was my wife. But what I did say to you is accurate. And when God had me wander from my father's household, I said to her, "This is how you can show your love to me. Everywhere we go, say of me, he is my brother." Okay, well, Abimelech brought sheep and cattle and male and female slaves and gave them to Abraham, and he returned Sarah, his wife, to him. Again, notice that both in chapter 12 and now here in chapter 20, Abraham receives more blessing of God despite the mistakes he's making. God continues to supply Abraham abundantly, even in the middle of his mistake. And Abimelech said, "My land is before you. Live wherever you like." So Abimelech is going to conform to what God says. He's not going to do anything outside of what he's been shown in that dream. He's going to obey. And to Sarah he said, "I am giving your brother 1,000 shekels of silver." Notice how he calls him her brother instead of your husband. 1,000 shekels of silver. So now we have livestock and money. This is to cover the offense against you before all who are with you. You are completely vindicated. Wow. So Abraham prays to God, and God heals Abimelech. Isn't that interesting? God says, "Abraham, you're still my guy. I still call on you as a prophet to pray to me about the offense that you had a hand in creating by misleading the king. I still want you to pray for the one who will receive my judgment if this doesn't change." Abraham prayed to God, and God healed Abimelech, his wife, and his slave girls, so they could have children again. Again, what did God do? What did he do? He had closed the womb of the kingdom of Abimelech, for the Lord had closed up every womb in Abimelech's household because of Abraham's wife, Sarah. So what do we know? The Lord has taken action against Abimelech because of Abraham's statements. It's just an interesting story, isn't it? God's purpose is going to move forward, even though our faith is weak at times and we make mistakes. God knows Abraham's heart. God knows that deep down at the core of Abraham's being, there's a faith that's unshakable. But God also understands, Abraham, you didn't believe in me fully as you should have. You misled the king, but let me do this. Let me get you out of this situation and bring you back to a place where, my plan is going to move forward. So fascinating. The implications for us are widespread. God is going to accomplish his purpose through us despite our mistakes. As long as our heart is there in faith before him, he will overcome the things that we do that are, what should I say, low in faith. God is able. So what do? We believe. We don't need to protect ourselves in the sense that we need to lie in order to save ourselves. We need to just trust God and move forward. There it is. I pray you serve him well today, church. God bless you.